Hey, what's up guys, TotallyDubbed here, and today I'm doing a video review for the Yamaha EPH M200 earphones. So first of all, I'd like to thank Yamaha for actually sending these out for review. These can be found for around £80 on Amazon.co.uk and around $140 on Amazon USA. Links will be in the description below. I should also say, if you want a full detailed written review of the earphones, definitely do check out my link in the description below to my website, which goes into much more detail than this video will do. So let's get into it. So first, the packaging and accessories. So inside this package you get the following: a set of earphones, as you would expect, with some medium silicone tips. You've got another medium silicone tip, two small silicone tips, and one set of large silicone tips. Then you've got a 1/4 inch jack, which I'll get into in just a second. You've got a bunch of manuals, and you've got a hard carrying case, as you can see. So in terms of the overall packaging and accessories, I was a little bit disappointed because, first of all, there's no foam tips included, other sets of tips such as dual triple flank tips. There's no soft carrying pouch, and on top of that, the inclusion of a 1/4 inch jack kind of baffles me. I've hardly ever seen it in a set of earphones to be included, and I can understand that Yamaha does sell quite a lot of amps and receivers and things, but I can't realistically imagine someone buying a receiver or an amplifier and realistically wanting these set of earphones, and I'll get into the looks and design in just a bit. So it's very weird to see a 1/4 inch jack. Instead of seeing a 1/4 inch jack, I would have preferred to have seen those other accessories that I just mentioned. So let's get into the build quality. So the build quality is decent at best. It is terminated by a right-angled gold-plated jack, which, as you can see, the color of the jack and the overall look of the cable itself is pretty dull. The color looks off red, and it looks really cheap. The wire itself does get very tangled as well. You can probably see it right there happening. It gets tangled very easily and it's quite annoying. On top of that, just the overall look and presentation that Yamaha have gone for over here looks really cheap. It actually reminds me of an earphone that's produced in a cheap, low-cost factory, or some earphone that's designed for, say, kids or teenagers, which have a £10 or £20 set of earphones, not an 80 quid set of earphones made from a very famous brand like Yamaha, which sells ridiculously expensive speakers, amplifiers, receivers, and you name it. So the overall look just doesn't really fit the brand, nor does it fit the price. Moving up the cable, you'll be able to see it's got an inline mic, and again, the inline mic looks very cheap. It's made out of plastic, very cheap plastic should I mention, and it just doesn't look that good. It almost looks like something out of a Transformers kids toy or something like that. It's not something I would really want to rock around the street, neither is it something that I think that people that mainly would be buying Yamaha products, let alone Yamaha earphones, would really be looking for a look that has something like this. On top of that, it's overly big for no reason. The earphones themselves, as you can see, have got a different sort of design, which reminds me of the Audio-Technica ATH CKS77, and those were good earphones which had amazing bass and had the same design but absolutely terrible microphonics. It's safe to say that these earphones, the M200s, don't have terrible microphonics. In fact, their microphonics, in other words, their cable noise, is really good. So I didn't have any sort of cable noise problems, unlike the CKS77s, which were horrendous in terms of that. Now, the design of the earphones is nice, it's very comfortable. However, in terms of isolation, it's not perfect. It is decent and better than I expected in comparison, say, for example, to the Audio-Technicas. However, it's still not as good isolation as other earphones out there, which are just regular in-ear earphones, which block out more noise because they feel that they go deeper, and or feel that their overall size kind of blocks out most of the passive noise, the passive external noise that might come in. So, unfortunately, the isolation wasn't that amazing, but still above average for its given design, and its comfort was actually very good. Now, moving on from that, let's get into the most important part, is the sound quality. So I did mention that the looks weren't that great, and often I find that earphones that just don't look the part don't really sound the part. And that's not always the case, because you've got examples like the Monoprice 8320s, which are, they look pretty cheap, they tangle like crazy, and you know, are ridiculously cheap to buy, but their sound that they offer is really good for their price range, as in like £8 or something. But these, which were £80, which don't really look like Captain America-esque earphones, aren't earphones I was looking and I saw, wow, they look really good, or they look really well designed, or, you know, they give off an impression of being a really expensive earphone. Unfortunately, their £80 price tag doesn't really reflect their sound quality. The sound quality was hit and miss at best. On top of that, it was very much focused on the low end. Much like very cheaper earphones, which focus a lot on the low end, which to an untrained ear would sound, wow, these are awesome, bro. But in reality, their low end was not that really well controlled. So the mid bass was very much present, very much loud, and it had a lot of mid bass, but the sub bass was almost non-existent. It didn't really feel that it extended really well, and the mid bass was actually also uncontrolled, which again to an untrained ear wouldn't sound that bad. But when compared these to some heavy hitters out there, for example, if I compare it to some Futuresonics G10s, then the low end just won't be able to cope with earphones of that caliber. The mids were therefore very much affected because the mid bass was very much strong and very present. The mid bass was affected, meaning it was creating a recessed sound, which was quite V-shaped and very much pushed back. That also didn't help with its soundstage. The soundstage really affected the mids and the highs because it felt quite confined. There was not much of a good decay on these earphones, and on top of that, the musicality and the noise separation was pretty poor, which meant that the overall sound presentation was a little bit dull. Just to add the icing on the cake, the highs were rolled off, they didn't give that much sparkle, and just didn't have that much life to them. In all honesty, the overall sound quality to me was disappointing. Considering I had previously reviewed the Yamaha speakers, which are the LSX 170s, which sounded phenomenal despite having a ridiculously high £400 plus price tag, sounded amazing, and that's exactly what I was expecting from a Yamaha product. Really good, refined sound quality, which sounds really nice, and on top of that, an earphone that is well-rounded, not super bass heavy. I can understand these are £80, but at £80 you can pretty much buy the Dunu Titan ones, which come in, I think, £80–90, and far outclass these in almost every single category, going from looks to the actual sound quality. In fact, I found my SoundMagic E10s to actually sound better in the mids department and even the highs, and that's saying something coming from a £35 set of earphones. So overall, the EPH M200s just weren't that great, both in sound quality, looks and design, and just the overall presentation and even the price. If these were like £40, I could see myself recommending them more for bass heavy earphones, but even at £40 I would have probably selected the E10s, which give a better overall sound rather than just a bass heavy sound. So it's a thumbs down from me, and hopefully you enjoy this honest and unbiased review despite being sent these by Yamaha themselves. But I just can't produce honest or biased content of any sort. So unfortunately, Yamaha, you gotta try better next time. Definitely start with the looks. It's a bit weird because their old range, the EPH 100s, looked absolutely sensational and had loads of glowing reviews all over the internet. I never had a chance to hear them, but I would consider them to be really nice in terms of looks, let alone their sound. And unfortunately, if you just look at these, you just think, I don't know, cheap 20–30 quid earphones that are made for kids. And unfortunately, not to say kids' ears are bad, in fact they're probably the best because there's less frequency lost when you're a young kid, but I can see these appealing more to a younger generation, which are more untrained in terms of their ears and unaware of other earphones out there in comparison to an older generation, and one that knows who Yamaha actually is. And it's a shame because I would say that people who would be primarily buying the earphones would be people who have a massive amplifier at home, and therefore Yamaha's thoughts of including a 1/4-inch jack, and they go ahead and buy the earphones expecting the same quality and sound as their headphone, their receivers and DACs and speakers, and are unfortunately presented with these M200s. So overall, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this review. Again, if you want to check out links in the description below, I definitely encourage you to do so, especially the written review. Anyway, I've been Totally Dubbed, and hopefully you've enjoyed this unbiased and independent review. Take care, guys. Totally Dubbed out. Bye-bye.